So today we'll be talking about the ancient ritual African sacrifices. In Africa, the ancient African culture is one that profoundly embraced ritual animal sacrificing in most of the African countries, if not all. Hello everyone, welcome back to Breakage Barriers. If you're new here, my name is Blessing, or you can call me Lady B. Sacrificing of animals to the deities, the ancestors, is prominent. It's something that is embedded in the African culture all over Africa. So it's part of the spirituality. In fact, when you look at the African culture, sacrificing of animals is unique to most parts of Africa, be it West Africa, North Africa, South Africa. Sacrificing of animals is something that was and still is commonly practiced, and a culture that has been passed from generation to generation. And being a Christian, an African Christian, I found that this same culture of sacrificing of animals to deities is something that is scripturally written in the Christian Bible, the Old Testament part of the Christian Bible. And he captured it so detailed. The way these animals were being sacrificed to the deities, as is written in the Old Testament of the Bible, is mostly what you can find in the African culture. Although the current Christian practice is that the practice of these sacrificial animals to deities is something of the past, and now the New Testament part of the Christian Bible is what is being encouraged to be embraced, which is majorly of the apostles and Jesus Christ. But there's no way you talk about the New Testament of the Christian Bible without reference to the Old Testament, because it's the Old Testament of the Bible that gave birth to the New Testament of the Bible. So it's interconnected, and one cannot do without the other. But what baffles me is the similarities in the description of these sacrifices performed in the Old Testament in relation to the African culture. The question is, why did these animals have to be sacrificed to the deities? Why sacrifice animals to deities? Why not sacrifice plants or fish or something else to the deities? Or even just pour libation to the deities? If this is just to honor the deities, as some people might take it to be, and what I've come to find is that it's not as much as it's got to do with the deities, but the food. Like I have been stating in my previous videos, which to me, it's an eye-opener, because it's something that I didn't know as well before until I researched as to why. In the written scripture of the Christian Bible, it states that the original people of the earth were placed in a garden. And I believe since it was in a garden, the source of their food must have been mostly that of plants. Like it's stated in the Bible that a particular type of fruit was passed between the man and the woman. I believe that description must have been an allegory. The Christian Bible is full of allegories, so that would not come as a surprise if that statement itself regarding Adam and Eve with the apple and all that storyline being an allegory. Again, if we have to take it out of that context, plants must have been a type of food that humans consumed in the ancient times. When I say the ancient times, I'm not talking about the 1800 or 1000 years ago. I'm talking about millions of years ago, because this earth must have been existing for millions of years ago. And in those times, eating of plant must have been the normative, not as we have it now, that most humans are in consumption of animals mostly. If we have to take it in this context, it means that humans are currently feeding on a type of food that must have not been the normative, which is most likely going against how it was intended from the beginning. So humans must have been feeding on plants. If not, like we found out in my previous videos, that blood is something that has to be extracted from an animal before it can be edible for humans. It's only human for humanity to feed on meat or flesh without the blood in it. If that's not the case, if there's nothing wrong with eating meat with the blood, then it should have been normal currently for humans to eat meat with the blood in it. But because we find that it is not normal for a human being to take on meat with the blood in it and eat it. Why? Like I stated in my previous video, because blood is representative of life and death. It's a symbol of life and death. So if you've been following this channel, you will understand that we have established the fact that eating meat with blood still in it is inhumane. It's in opposition to nature. It's not the normative. So the permittable way to eat meat, as it has become a popular food amongst humanity, is that whenever humans want to eat or devour on meat, the acceptable way is that the blood be completely extracted from the meat. That extraction of blood from the meat, it shows that the life that is in that meat has been taken out, which makes it safe enough to eat. As humanity have come to find out, the best way to take out blood from meat is by cooking it. Not just cooking it thoroughly. It's got to be thoroughly cooked. That way, the blood is completely extracted. Then it becomes safe enough to be eaten. And again, I must point out that it's not just scriptures that is telling us this fact. Even scientists and scholars have come to find out that the safest way for humans to consume meat is to cook it thoroughly. You see, scientists advise when you eat your meat, make sure it's thoroughly cooked. That way it's safe enough to consume, because most of the diseases contained in that blood is gotten rid of, and the blood itself is gotten rid of. So is it that the regular food of humans was plants or vegetables? Was that what humans consumed in ancient times? And again, as I remind you, when I say ancient times, I don't mean the 1700 or in the 1600 time. I mean millions of years ago. Is it that plants and vegetables was what humans ate? And when humans consumed on plants and vegetables, they lived longer. Even the Bible attests that in those days, people lived longer. So did they live longer because they were consuming vegetables? It's just something to reflect on. Was it that since humanity started consuming flesh, was that when sin was introduced? And when we talk about sin, the meaning of sin is going against the divine laws. What is divine? Divine means deities, that is God or gods. So Is it that when humans started consuming flesh, as we call it today, meat, is that when we started going against the divine laws of consuming plants or vegetables? Because in the ancient African culture, these types of food were offered to deities as sacrifices in appeasement to these deities. But the question is, why do these deities have to be appeased? Is it that a law has been broken? Because again, when we talk about sin, sin is about going against divine laws. So when you go against the divine law, it means you have sinned. Sin is not when somebody offends me or I offend somebody else. Sin is breaking a divine law. The question is, if no law has been broken, why are these deities being appeased? Because in the ancient African culture, these sacrifices are made to appease the gods. So these sacrifices of animals are gifts to God or deities. So this God is in the spiritual realm, isn't it? So they actually don't need any material things from us humans who are presently here on earth. If they are in the spiritual realm, we can't see the deities. So giving them things like animals as gifts would not really add to them, would it? There must be a particular reason for giving these animals in sacrifice to the deities. And I've come to find that it's because a divine law has been broken. And the divine law could be in respect to humanity's not being allowed to eat animals, but because of the shortcomings of humans, we can't help ourselves with our weaknesses. It gradually became part of our way of living. It's like humans got to a place whereby humans started consuming animals and could not resist it. But in order for humans to make it at least permissible, it is found that the blood had to be extracted. These animals had to be gifted to the gods. Another question is, so this sacrifice of animals to the deities, is it actually for one to be able to have access to the deities, or is it just for the eating of these animals to be permissible? And for it to be permissible, it's got to go through a process of instructions and then gifted to the one who has permitted it. It's just a practice that brings up a lot of questions erupting, you know. Why did the people in the ancient times practiced this animal ritual sacrificing? Why was it necessary? Why was it so prominent all over Africa and still ongoing practice all over Africa? Because some scholars have found that the first humans were actually from Africa. So the first humans, were they involved in the consumption of plants and vegetables? And did they go against the divine laws of eating plants and vegetables to start eating animals, which was part of the divine law of not eating animals at all? But this later became permissible because of the weaknesses. Humans are weak, we've got weaknesses, and that's what makes us humans. So did the gods or the deities permit this act of eating animals, but with a caution of instructions? The deities probably saying to humans, okay, if you cannot help it, we are compassionate enough to allow you to continue to eat this meat that you have found delicious. But with a condition, humans have to extract the blood out of the animals by cooking it thoroughly before being allowed to eat it. It makes me wonder, really, is this how the sin all started? Is the sacrifice of animals in the ancient African culture for the purpose of sin or for the purpose of eating forbidden food? And this question is something that is also in the scriptures. I mean, the Christian Bible. In the Old Testament, it did talk about not eating specific type of foods. So has this been correctly interpreted or not? Is the sacrifice of these animals to wipe the sin of humans away, or is being done because the forbidden food is being consumed by humans, which is against the divine law? And going against the divine law is committing sin, according to the Christian Bible and understanding of what sin actually means. Have we as humans truly understand the purpose of animal sacrifice, or we have completely got it wrong? Because if these animals are being gifted to the deities as an appeasement for eating the forbidden food, then it's got to continue to be gifted to the deities. Because it means if it's not gifted to the deities, then there's no appeasement between humans and the deities for eating the forbidden food. Or it should completely stop being gifted to the deities, because we believe that a one-time sacrifice has been made and that covers it all. It's just a question, something to think about. Thank you very much for watching. It's always a pleasure talking about these topics. Take care now.